What is going on, everyone? This is Drew Code Sports Talk, and I am your host, Andrew Wright. And on my left screen, I don't know if it's going to be left on your guys' screen, but it's Cody Johnson. Cody.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Holy cow. I almost forgot how to talk because it's been so long since we jumped on here to do a show together, man. Welcome to Drew Code, you guys. We have a lot in store for you. As everyone knows, the Olympics is going on right now, so go USA. I think we're leading in all medal counts as of today as we're recording. Yes. And then we have a ton of discussion to talk about with the Giants and hopefully Team USA basketball and maybe some Raider talk. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But welcome. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and also follow us on all of the podcast channels that are listed down below. And Drew, it's good to see you, man. How's it going?
Yes. Well, first, I'm going to preface it by this. All of my kids are inside right now. So just a heads up if you guys hear anything. And I'm including my dogs as well. You'll probably hear one of them at least shake or scratch a few times. So I'm sorry in advance if you hear that. If you don't, no worries. But I'm just going to say it now. But yeah, everything's going good, man. Had a summer off, which was really nice. And did a lot of traveling. I mean, not like different states, but I mean, we did a lot of traveling inside California. We went to Morro Bay for a week. We went to a Giants game. Took the kids. It was their first time being there. They got to, slide down the giant Coke bottle, and my son was infatuated with the giant glove that was out there. So that was cool. My son also kept trying to go onto the baseball field, onto Oracle Park, which I almost was just like, well, maybe I should let him, but I resisted that urge. But that was really fun. We went to a Dodgers A's game. If you guys don't know or don't remember, my in-laws are all Dodger fans, so they wanted to go see a Dodger game for a little bit cheaper than going to the Dodger Stadium.
Yep.
So they ended up going to Oakland, which it was fun. I was doing a lot of walking around. I didn't really get to watch a lot of the game. I saw Shohei Ohtani just absolutely suck. And then the next day he absolutely killed it. So I was like, of course. But so yeah, we did a lot of we went to Yosemite, which was the trip from hell, and I'm not going to go into that, but it was just you heard about it, so yeah. Cody, but it was just that was funny. Now it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. Yeah, so we just did a lot of stuff with the kids. I mean, God, I'm spent a ton of time with the kids, which I'm really happy I got to. Had a trip summer. We did summer league for Sanger West basketball, and we went to Thousand Oaks, and my kids and wife came up with me, and that was really fun. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of drama too, though, which was kind of funny, but it was all in all, it was a really good summer. And work is going to start. I start next week, so in exactly a week from today. We're recording this on Wednesday, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, but hey, it was good, it was fun, and now it's back to basketball grind and back to work.
Yep, and Sanger West grind, and especially with hopes of not a new opportunity, but a new venture into Sanger West kind of athletics, where you get to talk about it a little bit more and do it for fun, kind of like a podcast show. And I know that's an early discussion, so that sounds pretty fun. Yeah. But we actually too, you and I got a chance to hang out a lot throughout the summer, and thankfully because of your scheduling, so we were able to catch the Fresno Pro-Am game with your brother-in-law Neo. He came with us, so the three of us went and saw the community's Pro-Am, which was a ton of fun. And there's an event that we're all going to on Saturday the 10th, which Quincy Pondexter is
keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Paul George, Isaiah Thomas. You said this morning you found out Rudy Gay is going to be there. It's going to be a stat card, and there was already a lot of good talent to begin. Yeah, and you already said there was a lot of good talent to begin with, and it's getting even bigger. I like to think I'm pretty friendly with the owner of the league, Alton. He's a really good guy, and we met him a couple of weeks ago when we visited. And really happy that it's turning out. And I was actually thinking about this. I'm kind of worried because it's getting so huge. How do you top it next season? Because that's the big question. What do you do next season to make it go over the top? But anyways, we got a chance to do that a couple of weeks ago, and we're going again. And then we had a great double date a couple of weeks ago as well, where we shot darts, and my wife, who can't see worth a hill of beans, just bullseyed one after she handed you her glasses, and it was very, very funny. And your wife dominated us, even though I guess she's never played, which I call BS on. But it was great. It was a great time. We've had a pretty fun summer together. So
yeah, it was good. Lots going on, and it was fun to play around, but now it's back to business. So
yeah. And so speaking of back to business, so Drew, as you know, the Olympics has been going on for the last, I think, 10 days now. I think we're about on the finish line now to a majority of it. And so I was telling you this, I haven't watched too much of it. I mean, I've seen quite a bit of it when it's on, but there's so many events that you can't watch everything. But, you were telling me that it's pretty much on in your house 24/7. So what's some of the stuff that you've been enjoying about the Olympics, and what are your thoughts on some of the stuff that has taken place?
So I really do love the Olympics. I'm a big fan of them. I don't watch all of the sports. I'm usually more like, yeah, I like to watch this one. Like, and it's a lot. I mean, it is a lot of the sports that I do want to watch. But my wife is like, let's just put it on. Let's just see who wins. Like, she's like really strangely into it. Like everything. Like, if it's handball or okay, so my wife's like favorite show is Gossip Girl. So if it were Gossip Girl or handball, she wants to watch handball, and I'm like, what is wrong with like? I'm like, America's not in it. I don't know. I just really like it. Which I love handball. I love that. But like, if it's like, skeet shooting or Gossip Girl, she's like, let's put on skeet shooting. And I'm like, you don't even like guns. I mean, you've never even seen one like in person. And she was like, I don't know. It's the Olympics. So, we're always watching the Olympics. Anytime that it's on. Honestly, the only time we're not watching the Olympics is, I think it's like 5 to 8 where they have like a break on NBC. And even then there's usually some sort of competition going on. But now that as you said, it's kind of starting to wind down a little bit. There's fewer and fewer, but yeah, for some reason, my wife is just like really into the Olympics, which I'm all for. I love watching sports, but there's sometimes where I'm like, I just need a break from the Olympics. I'd like to watch something else. And she's like, put it on. It's not on every year. And I'm like, I know, but damn. So that's good. But some of the things that I just kind of wanted to, I guess, shout out really was, first of all, the women's gymnastics. The men's gymnastics has been pretty good, but the women's gymnastics was like the main event in the gymnastics world because obviously Simone Biles is like the top gymnast out there. Suni Lee is the defending gold medalist in all-around individual. We had Jordan Childs, who is starting to kind of get into her own. Jake Carey, she was like the vault master for the USA team. And so first they had the team all-around competition, and USA was kind of in a fight with Brazil because there's this girl Rebecca Andrade, and she came from like 2 straight years, or I think she had like 2 or 3 straight years where she tore an ACL and like both legs. Yeah, it was really, really bad. So she was coming back from all of that, and she's like really, really good, really talented. To be able to do what she does on any of these events, not just like balance beam or something, like any of these events, has been fantastic. And there was a big one where it was just the beam who was going to win, gold, silver, bronze on beam. And, a lot of people were like, well, Simone Biles is definitely, she's the one to beat. And Simone Biles has such a difficult routine that even if she like kind of messes up or kind of almost falls or puts her hand on the beam or something, she could afford to lose points. This is how good her routine is, and no one else can
Mhm.
touch her. Well,
Right.
unfortunately, for some reason, like 4 people before her fell off the beam, including her teammate Suni Lee. And so Suni Lee, it was really devastating because she was killing it. She was going all out. I mean, it looked like she had a chance at possibly gold, but at
Mhm.
least a medal. And she fell off hard. And so she came back up and finished her routine, but it was so disheartening to see her fall off. And then Simone Biles came up and she was going strong and she fell off in the same exact spot. And it was really weird because everyone who fell off the beam, literally the same exact spot they fell off on. So there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there who are saying, we need to check in on this, blah, blah, blah. Some of the people on the broadcast were like, well, she's, there, once someone falls, it gets in everyone's head, which I do agree with, but I was like, it doesn't get in your head on that exact spot. It just gets in your head that you're gonna fall. So it is kind of weird that it's all in the same, and I'm not joking about this. It's literally the same spot every single
Yeah.
time. It's really strange.
Well, what
But
it could
yeah,
be, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but what it could be is because everyone has witnessed that one spot and they're not claiming that they're thinking about it, but subconsciously they probably are. Because coincidentally, as you said, 4 people on the exact same spot,
yeah.
fall. And it's not because there's any funny business. It's probably because one competitor saw the first competitor, then the next competitor saw that competitor, and they're all now consciously trying to be aware of that spot, and that's where they got tripped up at. And I'm assuming these routines are super difficult in itself, so it's not like they're just walking on there, not like what
Yeah.
we've witnessed
They're not
our
just walking back and forth,
yeah,
and
not like what we
doing
witnessed
this occasionally.
yeah, not like what we witnessed our daughters do during gymnastics. It's far more difficult, it sounds like.
Yeah, there was a couple of moves where like they have to like show that they can stay like jump and stay on. And I was looking at my daughter. I was like, "Hey, you used to do that," and she was like, "I know, I know." So anyway, so yeah, so that was, it was really disheartening. And then Simone Biles came up. She ended up falling the same spot. And then that Rebecca Andrade, she didn't actually do that great. She like messed up a couple of times, but stayed on the beam and basically
Mhm.
ended up winning gold. Which I'm not trying to like be like, oh, she was terrible, but it was like it really brought her a lot of confidence because then later on they did gold, silver, bronze for floor routine, and you
Mhm.
could see the confidence that it gave her for that routine. That hey, I can beat Simone Biles. I can beat, Suni Lee or whoever. And so she ended up winning gold on that one as well. And
Mhm.
for no other reason than, Simone Biles did have like, I think 1 or 2 mess ups, and I think Suni Lee as well, but it wasn't as bad as like the beam. Um, and so she just outright, or I'm sorry, not Suni Lee. It was Jordan Childs, excuse me. She ended up
Mhm.
getting bronze. And it was just, you could see that it built confidence in her, and it was kind of cool because it is a really cool story.
Mhm.
And I actually kind of like that she's this like dominant force now. Like she's someone that, okay, now America has to worry about. And I'm not just talking about just strictly for Simone Biles, but for our future gymnasts, because it's good to have someone that you have to attack, or that you have to go above and beyond. You have to beat this person.
Yeah.
I think that brings out the better competitor in everyone. And so I think USA Gymnastics is going to really be good these next 4 years going into, I guess, LA 28.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to touch on that. And then a little bit of disappointment from the USA swimming teams. They were
Mhm.
kind of, I don't know if you've watched any of the swimming, but like the USA in gold counts, just like men and women events.
Mhm.
Um, it took the very last race in swim in these Olympics to overtake Australia in total golds. We
Oh
had
wow.
more medals total, but like it was 7 golds for USA, 7 golds for Australia, and we went into the last event, which was the women's 4x100 IM, and we pulled it out, which was great, and it was really nice to see. But USA was not as dominant as we are. I mean, like Caleb Dressel, he came in and, for all intents and purposes, the guy has gone through a lot, and he explains it, and I'm not going to go all into it, but he was expected. He was like he's the world record holder for his event. I think it was I want to say it was the 100-meter free. He was the world record holder in it. He was the Olympic record holder in it. He was the gold winner in Tokyo in the last Summer Olympics. So he was like the guy that you had to beat, and he ended up coming in last. Or no, he didn't even. He came in last in the semifinal, and like didn't even get to compete into the final because of his time. And obviously he was coming in last, and it was just like, dude, like, what is going on? What's happening here? Katie Ledecky did really good. She's better distance than like short distances. So, like when she had to do the 800, she wasn't as good as she was in the 1500. So yeah, there was just a lot of like, I don't know, like I felt like since Michael Phelps has left, I felt like America really relied on Michael Phelps. And I'm not just talking about us as fans. I'm just talking about like the swim team in general. Like they really relied on Michael Phelps, and then everyone else kind of knew their place. Okay, I'm second to Phelps, or I'm third, or this is where this is what my goal is here, and blah blah blah. Or if Michael Phelps is in my event, I know I'm aiming for silver or bronze. I'm not trying to get gold because it's not going to happen. It was, it kind of felt like that. And so now with that mentality, like sometimes the dominant force isn't always great for the sport, because now it's really hurting us. And like you saw it in these events where it was like America was like, they could win, but also there's, this guy from Australia, there's a guy from Great Britain, there's a guy from Canada. And I do understand like the world is starting to catch up, obviously. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe we're just really spoiled, and it's like, dude, what the hell is going on? Yeah. But like, it just kind of felt like USA really didn't focus on the swimming events like they used to. And it's really starting to show up, especially in these games where it's like, dude, like, we should be so much better, and we're not.
Well, and to like what you said about, the going back to the women's gymnastics, the Brazilian who took gold, and, now it sparks competition, hopefully with our home country to now compete harder in the LA games when they come in 28, to be still relative. And it's different when we are the country that has the dominant athlete in Michael Phelps, that we were so spoiled to see him collect basically all the gold medals ever conceived in whatever he competed in. And then now we're like, well, we should be better. Well, what if Michael Phelps is just that much better than everybody else? And also, you sent me this clip yesterday. Michael Phelps even said that the rest of the world has now caught up to the USA. And maybe it's because USA just figured, oh, we have this because this is our sport. And every other country now has been scratching and clawing to close the gap. And they have relatively, like most countries now are probably out competing us in our competitions that we used to dominate, regularly. Yeah. And it's kind of like Team USA basketball, and we're going to segue to that in a moment. But it's kind of like that, where we had the 92 Dream Team, and we obviously were just mountains ahead of everybody. And now, as decades have kind of closed and Olympic Games have been played, competition is now stiffer to the point to where, there was one Olympics where, I don't even think USA medaled, or we got bronze or something like that, to where we had to reassemble the team, and the competition is just that much better. And in today's NBA, just again, to keep it in the context of swimming, there are far more international players that are now more relevant in, let's say, the NBA, that close that gap competitively with USA. Like, we had to assemble one of the best rosters, and there's still questions if we can even do it, just because that's how great the competition is around that sport now. And I think it's very similar to swimming. And maybe it's a USA thing. Maybe they just taken their skills for granted to where they haven't competed as hard. And I still see some medals being captured, but I don't see nearly the level of dominance before, even with Phelps and without Phelps up to this point. It does seem like, a lot of the world has closed that gap. And a lot of it is maybe it's because USA just isn't taking themselves seriously. Not to say, as we both sit here as two, 30-year-olds out of shape in our houses, that we can do it better. But, in relative to the Olympics, maybe it is something that the program needs to take a hard look at and see if they're competitive now with the rest of the world. And Michael Phelps even said that. So,
yeah. Well, at this time, I'd like to announce my I'm going to be going to LA 28 for the Olympic trials. No, you know what? I told my wife, I was like, I wish I would have focused, or I wish I would have known or been into the Olympics a little bit more when I was like junior high school, where I could have done swimming stuff and whatnot, because I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I am a pretty fast swimmer. And I feel like if I would have been able to focus on that a little bit, I could have, I'm not saying I could have gone in the Olympics, but I could have at least put all my effort in that. And I think I could have done decent at least, but I'll never know. But
you did baseball and you did baseball instead. And look what it got you.
You don't put on your microphone.
As my son comes up and hold on. What, buddy?
Well, that was a nice salute from your son.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be back. But anyway, so another Olympic event, as you kind of alluded to already, the men's basketball team. They've been really, really good. But there's something that I've noticed. I know you haven't watched a lot of the games, Cody. I've pretty much watched all of them except for the last one, and you literally watched the last one. So we've watched them all, just not together.
Separately.
Yeah. But something that I have really noticed is a lot of the young players, and I'm talking about Devin Booker, I'm talking about Anthony Edwards, I'm talking about Bam Adebayo, I'm talking about Tyrese Halliburton, who really hasn't seen a lot of time, Jason Tatum, guys like that. They're not really. I would even include Joel Embiid into this. They're not showing up. I mean, Anthony Edwards was good, and last game Devin Booker was the leading scorer, but that was his only game that I watched where he actually was effective. Like every other game. Now, I didn't watch the pool play, or no, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the
showcase,
the exhibition, the showcase games before. I didn't watch any of those because I was out and about doing stuff anyway. But like during the pool play and this quarterfinal, watching all that, Devin Booker has been a no-show. Steph Curry, honestly, has been kind of a no-show. Joel Embiid, I would argue, is the only reason he's on this team right now is because he's a big man who can kind of disrupt Jokic, which in the game that the USA played Serbia, actually Anthony Davis was the more effective one. Like Joel Embiid couldn't do anything. But Jokic is a strong dude, but he can't really back down Joel Embiid that much. So, that's what Joel Embiid has going for him. If it's not for that and we don't play Serbia, Joel Embiid doesn't play on this team. I guarantee it. He's been awful. And Bam Adebayo has been way better than Joel Embiid. Anthony Edwards has been okay. His defense has been a little suspect. He's not really scoring as much, but what he is lacking in like shooting or anything, he is getting to the lane, and when he gets a dunk, I mean, it's getting everyone, hyped up and whatnot. But for the most part, all these young guys really are not stepping up. And
Mhm.
it makes me think because like LeBron James, 39 years old, almost 40 years old.
Mhm.
This guy is the leader of the team and like is absolutely dominant. Whenever he wants to score, he goes scores.
Mhm.
Whenever he wants an assist, he's going to make it happen. Whenever he wants a rebound, he's going to make it happen. If he needs to go get a block, he makes it happen. You know, Kevin Durant, automatic bucket. I mean, anytime he has the ball in his hand, you have to worry that he's going to score. Like, and the way he's been shooting in these Olympics, it feels like everything's going to go in every single time. And then you talk about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been a menace defensively, and then they're rewarding him offensively as well. But he's been more of the I'll get the rebounds, I'll be the defender, you guys go and score. And KD is like done, and LeBron James is like, sure, I'll let everyone else score. So yeah, it's been good. I mean, I'm not disappointed in that. What I am disappointed in is LeBron James is not going to be in the LA Olympics the next Summer Olympics. Right. KD is not going to be in the next Summer Olympics. Anthony Davis, I don't think will be in the Summer Olympics. So who are you going to rely on? Like, yeah, Bam's playing well, but we're not dumb to think Bam Adebayo is. I wouldn't put him as a top 5 center in the league. I wouldn't put him there. Maybe you would, and maybe that's the debate. But I think you and I can at least agree on he's not a top 3 center. And you could argue Anthony Davis is, or even Joel Embiid is, but not Bam Adebayo. Anthony Edwards, you know, this guy, a lot of people were comparing him to Michael Jordan. Well, this is when Michael Jordan really stepped up. Was in these Olympics. He took these seriously. Kobe Bryant took these games seriously, which then in turn made LeBron James take these games seriously, which in turn made Kevin Durant take these games seriously. So Anthony Edwards, he is taking it serious, but he's not stepping up, which is a concern for me. So like, and I've never been the biggest Devin Booker fan. I think he's a really good scorer, but I think that's all he's got. And I don't know. It doesn't make me hopeful for the future because France looks like a good team. Serbia looks like a good team. Canada looks like a good team, even though they just lost to France and they shouldn't have. You know, Germany is a really good team. So there's a lot of good talent out there that, you know, is better than what it used to be. So I'm not gonna sit here and debate, you know, well, Michael Jordan played in we're not gonna go there, but I do think that the talent in all of the countries is a lot better than what it used to be.
Right.
But still, the fact of these are some of the best scorers in the league. These are some of the best defenders in the league, and it's still the 40-year-old, the over 35-year-old, and, you know, a guy who has had a ton of injuries in his career dominating for USA. And it's like, we're relying on them. And it's sad because like when USA is like letting the other team go on a run, you basically are sitting there going, we need LeBron to just drive down the lane and score. Like we need him. We need that spark right now. And so it's a little concerning for the future. I don't know if you have that same thought, and maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I am actually really concerned about USA basketball, not this year, but for the next Olympics.
So here's what's difficult is, and I kind of touched on this when we were talking about, you know, higher competition around the world now, because as you were saying that, I was thinking, okay, who are the top 10 players of the NBA today? More than half of them, we can probably argue, are international players. And Anthony Edwards is more than likely, you know, the only American and probably Jason Tatum that are probably within the top 10 or top 15 that are, you know, a Team USA that I would say will be there next year. But here's the thing, though. There's so much basketball that'll be played between the start of the new NBA season to the summer games of 28 to where this whole roster could be completely different. And I can understand what you mean by the younger players not stepping up, you know, and you use Devin Booker as that example. This might also be Devin Booker's last Olympic. You know, he may only be on the team as like a spot up shooter, because looking at his stats right now, you know, he's played in 4 games, and his purpose really isn't to dominate from what I'm seeing here. It looks like his purpose is to shoot threes, which he shoots at 63% in the 4 games that have been played in the Olympics. And yeah, 62.5. And then his overall field goal percentage, this is 2s and 3s, is almost 57%. And he's averaging about a little over 12 points per game. So to me, his role in Team USA is just to be a spot up shooter. I think what we're seeing, and this is why sometimes the international players take Team USA by surprise. And I think I heard, was it Colin Cowherd or maybe it was Brian Windhorst or some NBA analyst that made the example of, imagine having, you know, 12 number ones, all elite, all NBA players getting on one team and asking them to sacrifice their roles. They're all known to be ball dominant. They're all known to be the number one option. They're supposed to get the ball. Now you're asking them to be selfless, and they're not sure how to do that. Whereas these international players who have always played a role in just whatever team that they're on are now being called upon to now score, be effective, and it's throwing the USA team off because they are having a harder time transitioning to being a role player rather than being the number one option. And I'm not saying that to say like it's an excuse for Devin Booker or whatnot. And also too, one of the things that we're seeing with Team USA that they never did in the 90s is they literally put in the 90s and 92, which is the ultimate dream team that we know of, they just put a bunch of guys together and, you know, they kind of worked out all the kinks, and their talent, you can argue, was what got them over the top, and they didn't have any competition. So it was really, you know, like it was a massacre before it even started. Now, as the world has developed, you're seeing Team USA now can't just put a cluster of good superstars together to work together, because the rest of the world has been playing for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years together. And they're just so much better chemistry. And basketball is the number one team sport where you need to have chemistry and teamwork to work together. And if anyone watched the documentary on Netflix with the Redeem Team, Coach K basically turned Team USA into like a training camp. Like, you got to devote time to go to team workouts, organize practices, go through a training camp, to where you had to build this continuity just like the rest of the world is doing. And now since he stepped away and it's given it to Steve Kerr, and you have Eric Spoelstra as one of the coaches, I'm forgetting who the third coach is, but now they're trying to carry that same legacy on. And what's difficult is they're now veteran coaches that are trying to get young players to play with a bunch of superstars. And I think there are more young superstars that will come to Team USA once these are all leaving. But I think what Steve Kerr is doing for this bunch, at least, is he's relying on the players that can handle the physicality of the Olympic rules, because it's far more physical than the NBA. And you see Kevin Durant, you see LeBron James, Anthony Edwards, who loves contact. They are excelling because they love to be physical in their play. And it kind of goes with their game a little bit, because they can facilitate and drive, and they're not afraid of contact. Whereas Devin Booker, we've seen, like, when you take away his space, he doesn't have a whole lot. And now with putting hands on certain players, they're kind of neutralized. Like Steph Curry, slightly neutralized just because he doesn't have as much space to work with in the Olympics as he would in the NBA. So I think what we're seeing here is we want the young guys to step up, but we're seeing kind of the older players who embrace the physicality take over because they need to. Yeah. And I can imagine when we get into like the semifinals, which is, I think, coming up tomorrow, and then in the finals where we play a gold medal match, it's going to be who outlasts who. And maybe that's when the younger players come up, because we're going to need fresh legs for LeBron or KD or whatnot. And fortunately, FIFA is a kind of a faster paced game, but also it's less time. So there's not a whole lot of minutes on the body as a standard NBA game. But I think what we will see is we will see these players called upon. And I think what's the trick is we're trying to witness a lot of a lot of number ones who we expect to dominate take a back seat, and we're adjusting to that. But I imagine when called upon, they'll probably be activated and then they'll do their thing. I'm not quite sure on Team USA, like who will replace it. Like a player that came to mind was Chet Holmgren, maybe, that might come in and be like the new Kevin Durant. And even still, I'm having kind of a hard time trying to figure out what other kind of players above that for the US that would play to kind of carry on the mantle. But in 4 years, we'll see what happens, because we didn't expect LeBron James or Kevin Durant at their age to even join this team. I was surprised that Anthony Davis joined, because he played the most games that he's played in his career in a long time, and he's playing in the summer. So 4 years is a long time to see what players are drafted, developed, who comes out to maybe we're in a better position, because now we have all the young guys coming in who embrace that physicality, like I mentioned. But we'll see. I think, again, a lot of the thing that's tough is this is the summer, and these players aren't at their peak yet. We're used to seeing them really shine in the fall and kind of before the start of summer, like in the playoffs timeframe. And now as we see them play this kind of competition, we're just expecting them to run away, which they did to Brazil yesterday. I watched that. They absolutely slaughtered them. There was no doubt. But I think Team USA it's an adjustment for all these players to know. And fortunately, LeBron James, this is like his third Olympic team I think he's been on, just understands what goes with it. So that's why, like, Kevin Durant, LeBron, they're the more dominant guys, because they just know. That's what I would say.
It's good points, sir. So I don't have any issue with what you said. So let's move on. So let's talk about American sports that's happening right now in America.
Specifically America's pastime.
I do have one question, though. What is the likelihood that Bronny James is on LA 28 Olympic team?
See, that's funny. I actually think it's a pretty high chance. I think it's like
I don't.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. LeBron's not. He's not going to be in the league by that point, so he's not going to pull any strings.
Oh. So you don't think that Bronny James will be good enough to be on Team USA?
I think eventually he may be good enough, but I think in the next 4 years, no. I don't think he'll be ready.
4 years is a long time, dude.
It is a long time, but you
4 years of NBA experience and training. I think this year's
a development year.
Sure.
And then next year, I think he's still going to be developing. I think he'll be on the Laker roster. Mm-hmm. The year after that, I think he'll see a few more minutes in the Lakers. Okay. And then I think in year 4, then you'll start seeing him. Okay. Because you got to think, too, he only spent 1 year in college. So it's going to take about 3 years for that development to really start showing. And then his 4th year, I think it'll be kind of too little, too late type thing.
I just think because he's a defender and he can shoot, and also too, he kind of does play a little physical, I think it kind of would fit with what they may need. And then I would ask then, okay, in this 4-year scenario, or we'll just say 3 years, where do you see Bronny James in 3 years, like development wise? Is he a good role player? Is he like a starter? Where do you see him in like 3 years?
That's the hard part. Is I would say role player, but he actually could end up being a starter just because we don't know how the team's going to look. Mm-hmm. We don't know who they're going to draft, who they're going to sign. I mean, I imagine Anthony Davis will still be there. Mm-hmm. But LeBron won't. I mean, LeBron is not going to play until he's 45. I think he's done after next year or in 2 years or whatever. However, I do think there's a possibility that LeBron James could be the coach of the USA basketball team.
This would be the craziest. So? No, this will be the craziest AAU team ever assembled in for America. He is
the flag holder for USA, which, by the way, people throwing a fit that he was holding the flag. Relax. Anyway,
who else would you want? I mean,
thank you. Everyone is saying, well, like, you should have someone who isn't this popular figure and blah blah blah. Like, relax.
Wait, hold on. Why wouldn't America want the most popular athlete to carry the flag to represent USA?
Because their thought is because he has money. He's already established. He doesn't need this Like they want people who really worked very hard. Like they're not saying LeBron James didn't work hard, but they want someone who's worked hard their whole life to get to the Olympics, like a swimmer or a track athlete or something,
Yeah.
or a gymnast or whatever who's worked very hard, who doesn't have the platform that LeBron James does now, getting to be the focal point. And I was like, and you watch all the other countries and all the major athletes on the other countries' teams are holding the flag. So it's like, what are we doing?
Only America would we get upset about the most popular athlete being the flag bearer. And first off, so I can understand if maybe the argument is Simone Biles. Like that would be a great alternative just because like when you think of the Olympics, you think of Simone Biles. But I don't understand what's wrong with LeBron James. You just named off someone that's worked hard their whole life to get to the Olympics. He's been a professional athlete since before he was 18. This is his third Olympics, and he's potentially bringing back a third gold during his stint. I got it. Maybe we need to double check because wasn't Michael Phelps a flag bearer once upon a time? And
Cody,
didn't he
all I can say is make it make sense, bro. I don't know.
Only in America would we be outraged by that. Like we can't even find common ground with
and then everyone is complaining about the swim team not being as dominant, and it's like you wanted them to hold the flag. So make it make sense.
I couldn't pick him out in a lineup if my life depended on it, but everybody knows LeBron James.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody.
Everyone in the world, not just USA. I think that's another thing that people don't realize.
Jesus. Oh my God.
Anyway, we're going to move on because we're going to get
all hot and bothered now from that. Jesus.
I thought you heard about that. Honestly.
No.
Yeah. And there was some, because Coco Gauff was the other flag holder. Mm-hmm. And they were upset that she was the flag holder too, because again, she's an established athlete. And I'm like, what are we doing? Good
okay,
Lord.
hold on. I have to point this out just because it'd be ignorant of us not to do it. Those athletes have a common denominator amongst them.
Yes, there's a lot of racial undertone.
Okay, I just want to point that out, that they're really bent out of shape about something weird. That's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. All right. I'm glad you got that off your chest. I thought you had heard about that.
Now I'm all pissed. Okay, go ahead.
do you need a fan in there? Wave yourself off. All right. So let's talk about baseball because, as you know, baseball is going on. If you guys have listened to the show before, you know Cody and I are big Giants fans, and so we love the game of baseball. It's a big passion of ours. I mean, we play fantasy baseball. We're all in on the Giants. We'll watch any baseball game that's on. So, so we're dialed in, and so we had to talk a little bit about, because the trade deadline just happened about a week ago. Mm-hmm. And so Cody, you and I kind of were discussing about it before, and we had talked about the Giants traded Jorge Soler. Mm-hmm. They traded Alex Cobb, and then they traded for Mark Canha. So it was a head scratching trade deadline for the Giants, which is actually the second year in a row where Giants fans are like, what is going on? What are we doing? Because last year, if you guys don't remember, the Giants basically did nothing. They stood there and watched everything happen. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, it's not like we're not trying to make it to the playoffs. And they actually had a chance. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, I felt like they had a better chance last year than they do this year.
Yeah.
And so they did make some moves. And at first it was Soler was traded and then Cobb was traded. So I was like, okay, so we're selling. Mm-hmm. So I had told you the day before the deadline, I said I wouldn't be the least bit surprised Snell is gone. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Duvall is gone. Mm-hmm. I could see them maybe trading a relief pitcher and maybe like Michael Conforto. And I was like, that's who I think who's going to be traded. And then the next day we ended up trading Alex Cobb, and then we trade for Mark Canha. And then after the trade deadline, we come out and say, we're all in on this year. No, you're not. You're not. You're not all in. It doesn't make sense.
We have different definitions with all in.
I like that what their goal is, and their direction is clear. I'm not denying that. The direction is we're going to win by our pitching, and we're going to go all in on our pitching. My argument to that is, if that is the case, why would you then trade Alex Cobb? And I know people want to come at me and be like, well, you gotta play Hayden Birdsong. Well, I just watched Birdsong give up 7 runs this last game.
In the second inning.
Okay? He's a rookie. For as much as he was pitching really well, he also is going to have a lot of faults. So it would be nice to have another veteran pitcher on the rotation that can pick him up. Or you can have a 6-man rotation where you're not using your bullpen as much, you're not using your starters as much, and then when push comes to shove, when you're in the playoffs or making a push for the playoffs, you can pick your best 5 and use that to push in the playoff and have a guy to back up if one of these dudes gets injured or if Hayden Birdsong starts to really fall off a cliff. But for some reason, we traded Alex Cobb. I understand he's coming off an injury, and people are like, well, we don't know how he's going to do, blah, blah, blah. Listen, Alex Cobb has had injuries before. He's a veteran pitcher. We know how he's going to come off the pitching. He's going to be fine. So, to me, I didn't fully understand why we let go of Alex Cobb. If this is the direction we're going in, we have Robbie Ray, who's looked good. Not great, he's looked good. And that's who Robbie Ray is. He's a good pitcher. He's not great. He's not bad. He's a good pitcher. You have Blake Snell. I'm going to also say he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's a great pitcher. He has, for a lot of his faults, he does have a lot of great moments. But he's always a notorious pitcher who starts off April and May usually pretty rough. Doesn't matter if he's coming off an injury. Doesn't matter if he didn't have a spring training. It doesn't matter. He's always been one of those pitchers that April and May, he's really bad. And for some reason, June, July, August, kicks it back into gear. For some reason. Ask Padre fans. They saw it for a few years. Ask Tampa Bay Ray fans. They saw it for years. Okay? It's his MO. Okay? But I would say you can make the case he's a great pitcher. We'll just say he's a great pitcher. Logan Webb, he's a great pitcher. He's not going to be a guy who's going to strike out a ton of guys. He's usually going to be in that 5-6 range, but he's a guy who induces a ton of ground balls. That's his MO. There's a ton of pitchers out there who still do that. He relies a lot on his sinker, which is a ground ball pitch. He's a great pitcher. He's signed in for a lot of years. So we have 3 really, really solid pitchers. I would say Alex Cobb is also a good pitcher. So that's kind of why I'm like head scratching. I'm like, why wouldn't we just keep him? Jordan Hicks has kind of fallen off, and that's another thing of why would you let go of Alex Cobb when you have Jordan Hicks, who started off great this year but has really fallen off, and his whole career he's been a relief pitcher. And so why wouldn't you then be like, well, let's keep Alex Cobb. Let's put Hicks in the relief in the bullpen. Let's see how he does in the bullpen. If he goes, no, I got to be a starting pitcher, then you can go back to him as a starting pitcher or leave him as a starting pitcher. But if he keeps falling off, you have Alex Cobb to fall back on, or you have Hayden Birdsong to fall back on. To me, it just doesn't make sense. And the other thing is, you want to say that you're all in and you're going to trade Jorge Soler. I understand Soler has not had the greatest of years so far. Understandably. I get it. And you have Jorge Soler in Oracle Park that is a notorious pitching ballpark. Everyone knows it. Everyone in the league, everyone who's a casual fan of baseball understands Oracle Park is not where you're going to hit a ton of home runs. That's why it's so impressive what Barry Bonds was doing, what he was doing. And I'm not going to go in the debate of did he take steroids or not. We're just talking about what we know right now. So we know that this is a tough ballpark to hit a home run. Not impossible, obviously, but you can't. It is a lot tougher because of the way the wind blows in that stadium, the way that the weather plays a big factor in that stadium, and sometimes it's just it's hard to see the ball in that stadium, to be perfectly honest, because the sun is right in your eyes every single time during the day, and during the night it's a little bit colder, so the ball dies a little bit quicker. So those are factors that you have. But I understand Soler is going to be really good when he's hitting home runs. He was starting to get on a hot streak, as you had mentioned, Cody, to me before. But now you're talking about a guy who you having him in the lineup is already scary enough. Just because he's not having a great year doesn't mean he's not going to catch on and hit one out of the park. And I feel like us getting Mark Canha was kind of a slap in the face, because it was like, well, we're giving up on home runs. And I'm not saying Canha can't hit a home run, but Mark Canha is not a home run hitter. He is a notorious guy for hitting for average. And we basically said, we're going to keep the guys who just kind of get base hits, and we're going to rely on our pitching. But we're also going to trade a pitcher, and we're going to trade a guy who could potentially give us a few more runs on days where we need it. It doesn't make sense to me. It makes zero sense. I think it would have been a smarter move to move Conforto and then also get Mark Canha, or trade Yastrzemski and get Canha, than to trade Soler and get Canha. To me, it doesn't make sense. So that's just my issue with what the Giants ended up doing. Cody, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's just kind of my first reaction and how I've maintained since the deadline.
Yeah. So here's why I'm conflicted. We signed Soler to a 3-year deal, 2 really with a player option at the end.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this for a few seasons now, where we really needed some sort of power bat in the lineup. And the fact that Matt Chapman is actually working out really well for us this season, he's on the cusp of 20 home runs, which is really, really good. I mean, he literally leads the Giants in every statistical stat except for batting average, even though, he can get on a hot streak and he can get over 250, maybe even 260. But right now he's just slightly under 250, but Matt Chapman has worked out. So he's a guy that can get on base, hit for power, and having Soler be another player. And I feel like we have a really good, our roster's gotten younger. I'll say that. Yeah. Since the days of like Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, when our defense was pretty bad. I feel like we have developed some guys, brought up some guys, and really, really good. I feel like Patrick Bailey has been a very good catcher for us, and argument could be he's probably going to be top 10 in the league in terms of overall pitchers, just because he hits really well. He's a really good defensive catcher. He throws out a lot of guys when they try to steal on him. One of the best in the league. And I feel like we have a lot of guys that can get on base, but we don't have any threats that makes teams worried about power or anything of that nature. And don't get me wrong, Chapman is, a good power bat, but I don't think pitchers fear him as they would Soler, because Soler, not only does he have power, but he could hit a really good ball to fly in a runner who's maybe hanging out on third because of that power in his bat, or maybe, could steal a base if he gets on there, because he has some good speed that people don't really realize once he gets on his base, because again, he's thought of as only for power. But I think what I'm confused with the Giants is I don't know what direction they're truly going for, because as you mentioned, they got Canha. Don't know what he's going to do really in the offense other than, he's a Melvin guy, which is fine. But really, I don't know if this roster is enough to get us the wild card. Like, we just had a really bad game yesterday against the Nationals where we had a rookie pitcher go in there. We had to put in a setup guy, I think at the top of the 3rd inning, and have that work for 4 to 5 innings where we gave up, 3 additional runs even after we pulled Birdsong. And so to me, like, if we got rid of Soler to get in pitching depth, I could have understood that. I'd be like, okay, I hate that, but that's fine. We didn't get that. We have no real pitching depth any longer. Yes, we have younger pitchers, so theory maybe is they can go for a little bit longer stretches than you would want to for Cobb or, Snell, for example, even though he just went, a complete game. You don't want to throw him out there for 8 to 9 innings every outing. So maybe the younger pitchers can't do that. But now we have no bullpen to really save us if we get in these jams again. And when yesterday, we had to put a bullpen guy out there in the 3rd inning. That's not great. We're already thin at that spot anyways. And now you're thinning it out because now you have rotation schedules that are thrown out. You're overusing guys because of bad outings rather than having a 6th rotation guy, which you mentioned. And in my opinion, our starting pitching is better this season because I think we have some pretty good, like Robbie Ray is a solid starter. Logan Webb obviously is our elite guy. Harrison has come into his own. So those guys are coming along really, really well.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about Harrison.
But it's a significant drop off from there. Even with Hicks, like he was a good starting pitcher for the first, let's say 50 games of the year. Since then, it's a dramatic drop off. He is meant to be a bullpen pitcher. And that's okay, but what makes that tough now is you got to now keep him in that starting slot, which is a little questionable to begin with because he's now up to a 5 ERA, and you can't have that on games where like now as we get closer to the wild card, you can't lose games to the Nationals. Yeah. And how are we going to be competitive against the Padres or the Dodgers, who we have to beat essentially,
or the Diamondbacks
to even get a 3rd wild card spot? And I think this is what's frustrating as a Giants fan is there's optimism. At the same time, we're being gaslit about this roster that we know probably isn't good enough to get in the playoffs or hopefully a wild card matchup. But there's a lot of talk of, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go after Ohtani. Didn't get Ohtani. We're going to go after Judge. Didn't get Judge. And now what are we to show for it? We signed Soler, who we thought would be great. Got rid of him before the trading deadline. He didn't even make a full season with the Giants before we got rid of him for nothing, for pennies. So I think this is what makes it tough. Farhan's, to me, hasn't shown me that he has the Giants' best interest at heart. I don't know if it's an analytics thing. I don't know if it's a finance thing, which is funny because the Giants this past offseason declared that money is no object to them to sign any free agent. And
we're removing money.
Here we are, So I would say, I'm pretty certain this is Farhan's, and you mentioned this, Farhan's last season is probably this season, just because there's nothing to show for it, especially if we don't get close to the wild card, which we should have gotten into the wild card the last 2 seasons. And it's the same thing. It's our bullpen depth. And you can't tell me that there isn't quality pitchers out there that you can trade for. But if we're too scared to pull the trigger or we're worrying about saving money for something that's not going to happen, it's on the GM at this point. There's nothing we can do. And I think that's where I'm at with it. It's kind of false optimism too, to show that look, we're now above 500. Oh, not anymore. We just lost a game. So now we're under 500 now. And you got teams now that are fighting for wildcard spots that are multi games above 500, and they're only getting hotter. And we're not in the right zone where we need to be right now to be competitive. And it's just another disappointing season, even though leading in, getting Melvin, getting Snell, getting Chapman, there's this optimism, and yet we're just not good enough. But we're also making ourselves worse throughout the season. So, I mean, the only thing I would give credit to Farhan's with is some of the prospects that he's drafted and that we developed in the farm system that's kind of coming up. There's a gem in, I think his name's Tyler Fitzgerald, who's turning out to be a pretty good player, and he's on a hot streak right now. So hopefully that continues. Ramos is doing really, really well. So hopefully that shakes out. But I don't know if we have anything to show for it after that. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think you make some good points. And as you said, I mean, we've got some, Patrick, as you mentioned, Patrick Bailey. I mean, Hayden Birdsong, he's a rookie. He's going to have these bad games. So I'm not going to freak out about him, but it's like now we're kind of relying on him. And the reason I was saying I forgot about Kyle Harrison, because when I was making my point earlier, I didn't even mention him. Kyle Harrison is a good picture. He's still young. He's still learning the game. So it's like if you have a couple of veterans like a Logan Webb, like a Robbie Ray, a Blake Snell, and you have Alex Cobb to kind of fall back on as well, that's really good. That way you can rely on those guys and get your rookies to kind of develop. And if, like I said, if Hicks is really struggling, you can say, hey, man, you're struggling as a starter. Can you go back in the bullpen and do something for us? Like, he might be like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I am struggling. I'd like to at least stay, relevant or stay do something where I can pitch, but not as many innings, and maybe it'll help me. Shoot, that might help him. And so I just don't think that the Giants really, they're not fooling us. Like they're saying, yeah, we're all in. But are you? And I know everyone wants to go, well, Snell threw a no-hitter. So what are we talking about? Yeah, he did a great job, And, I'm glad he did it as a Giant. I'm not saying I wanted them to trade him. But don't then tell me that, oh, we're all in, and you traded Alex Cobb, and it was like, you're not all in. You're banking on, okay, I signed this guy, and I signed this guy. If this doesn't pan out and we don't make the playoffs, that's my job. And my other thing is, I'm almost at the point where I don't think the Giants are going to make a move at the GM unless Farhan misses on Juan Soto or hits on Juan Soto. I think it really relies on Juan Soto because we have to get someone of significance. As you said, we went after Judge. We went after Ohtani, whiffed on both of them. Went after Correa, came up with this story of something about his foot. And, that luckily we had another team who said, yep, we see the same thing. That was lucky that we came out, or that same thing came out. But for the most part, it's been time and time and time and time and time and time again where these big free agents are there out in the open, ready to get grabbed, and we don't take advantage of it or we don't grab them. The only reason Bob Melvin is the manager for the Giants, A, he has a history with the Giants. He played for them. And B, he has a lot of players that he had coached in San Diego, and San Diego let him go, that are still out there and who could potentially come in. That's why we got Mark Canha. That's why we got Matt Chapman. That's why we got Blake Snell. It is not because of Farhan. And Farhan knows that. And the reason he knows that too is because he knows that Juan Soto is out there and could potentially not sign with the Yankees. And if that's the case, Juan Soto could then come to the Giants because he knows Bob Melvin. He knows how he wants to play. He's played with Blake Snell. I don't think he played with Matt Chapman, but he's been the face of a franchise before. And when he went to San Diego, he wasn't that. So I think he could come to San Francisco where you're the face of the franchise, and you know who this manager is and what he's going to ask of you. So that's all great and dandy. But if he whiffs on Juan Soto, then I think the Giants let him go, which is like, well, damn, that's a little too late because now we have to miss out on someone. But I just feel like that's what it's going to be. And unfortunately, because it was being talked about after we missed out on Aaron Judge. And Shohei Ohtani after that. So we'll see what happens. But it's crazy. All right. So first things first, I'm gonna bring this question up to you. Do the Giants, after the trade deadline, after everything that we've said, do they have a shot at the wild card spot? I don't think they're going to win the division. I think that's kind of out of – they're 10 games out. It's not impossible, and the Dodgers are getting hurt even more. But I'm just going to say I think the Dodgers, even though they are injury prone and stuff, I think it's a lot. It's a big feat to overcome because you have Arizona in the way and San Diego also in the way, and then obviously the Dodgers. So I'm just going to say wild card here.
No, I don't think the Giants have a chance to get to the wild card. They, even in the division, they've got two teams that are better than them, that are better shaped to make a wild card push than the Giants. The Giants, we're 24 hours above 500 for the first time since June. And now we're back under 500 again after yesterday's fiasco. And the one thing that you don't have any questions about with some of even the teams in our division, well, I'll just say the Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks, is they actually have solid pitching. And the Giants can't hang their hat on that. I would like Padres, they don't have the pitching strength that they did last season because they don't have Snell anymore, but still, like,
Darvish is out right now.
Well, and then they also just traded for, I believe his name is Tanner Scott, who's been on a tear. He was the relief pitcher of the month last month. So he's not losing them any games, that's for sure. When we can't say the same thing for our bullpen, because don't tell me that anytime we throw out any of the Tyler twins, we don't get a little nervous about what they're going to do in the next inning and a half that they are responsible for before Duvall. And Duvall, even though he's a heater, he also will give
gives
it
it up too. Yeah,
like pretty
when
often.
When he's wild, he gives up a lot of walks, and then he finds the middle of the zone, and these guys are teeing off.
Right.
Yeah.
Our bullpen this season collectively has blown 14 saves, and
Wow.
that's not a huge number, but it's not a number you like to see.
That's a big number. That's a big number. Yeah.
Duvall has 4 by himself. Now, granted, out of 25 appearances, he's closed 24, saved 21 of them, excuse me. So he's only blown 4. But still, though, in the Giants bullpen rotation, that's a lot of games we've missed out. That's not including runners that we've left in scoring position. Yeah. And that's runs you leave on the base. And I just don't see the Diamondbacks, granted that they were in a slump earlier this season, they kind of climbed their way out of it. Same thing with the Padres. They've been getting hot right after the All-Star break. I just don't see a world where the Giants can keep up with them. And that's not even including any of the other NL teams that are above them that we'd have to scurry and fight for a spot. So I don't think the Giants have anything that they can do to get themselves in wild card position. They'd have to pray for the Braves to fall off. They'd have to pray for the Mets to fall off. The Cardinals got hot and they're starting to come alive, and they've been dead in the water all season. So I just don't see how the Giants can make really any sort of push. And even if they do, I don't know if our pitching can maintain that. I mean, we are one injury away in our pitching rotation to being absolutely screwed. So I just don't know if that's even possible for us this season for the wild card.
So I'll go the opposite way. Even though I think I'm more on the side of I don't think they will. I think it's a lot to overcome San Diego. It's a lot to overcome Arizona, and then the other teams that you had mentioned as well. There's a lot to overcome, and we're only 5 games out of a wild card contention. But if we're still at that same spot in September, it's even harder to make it. Just being 5 games out, it's so hard. So we at least have to make ground. But I do think, having said everything that we said, I do think we do have at least a shot. Because our as much as I've been complaining why would we get rid of Alex Cobb, for all intents and purposes, our starting pitching is really good if everyone stays healthy. Mm-hmm. Or if everyone stays doing what they're doing. Okay, Snell is on a heater right now. Robbie Ray, he's still kind of getting in form a little bit, but he's going to be fine. Logan Webb, he's pitching really well. Kyle Harrison, ever since he's come off the IL, he's been really dealing. Jordan Hicks has kind of struggled. Hayden Birdsong has kind of struggled a little bit, but we've seen what they can do. And so I think if the starting pitching can stay consistent, that gives us a chance to win automatically. And then Patrick Bailey has been hitting and a solid catcher back there. Lamont Wade Jr. he's been okay. I actually still like Tyro Estrada, even though he's kind of struggled this year. Tyler Fitzgerald, as you had mentioned, is on a heater. Matt Chapman's been hitting really well this year. Conforto has actually had some. He's been a really good at-bat player. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but his at-bats have been really good, whether he gets out, whether he strikes out. He's not like going up to the plate and swinging and missing it 3 straight pitches and sitting down. He works the count really well, and it's a typical Giants player, basically. Elliot Ramos has been really good this year. He's kind of fallen off a little bit since the All-Star break, but so far he's still, playing really meaningful ball. And then Mark Canha is a good hitter. If Mike Yastrzemski is playing that day, Yastrzemski is still defensive wizard, and his at bats are a lot better than what they used to be. So, and then if we ever end up calling Luis Matos up, I really like Matos, even though he is a free swinger and he can at times. He reminds me of a righty Pablo Sandoval. He swings at some dumb pitches, but he's still learning. And Marco Luciano, we'll probably see him a few times as well. He's still learning the game as well. So our hitting is what I'm concerned about, which is why I wanted to keep Soler. But anyway, we're not going to hire from that again. But overall, we're a solid team, and Arizona is a solid team. But their great players that they had last year have taken a giant step back. And I'm saying Corbin Carroll. And I do also want to say, I told you also. I was on here saying I don't think Corbin Carroll's as good as what they're saying. I think me and Clark, when we were talking with Backseat Podcast, we had both agreed that Corbin Carroll is not as good as what they say he is. And right now, I'm not saying Corbin Carroll doesn't deserve to be in the major leagues, but all the hype that was on him, I had said he relies solely on his speed. And if they take that away, which they have this year, he is hitting under 220. He's not great. And so he has to get on base in other ways. And so Corbin Carroll, he'll work at it. He'll get better. I'm not saying he's going to be this terrible player, and I don't think he's terrible. I'm just saying all the hype that was around him, I did not buy into it, and I had said it on here. So I just want to say I told you so. Nana, nana, boo, boo, stick your head in doo-doo. Yeah, and then you talk about the Padres. Like, the Padres are a good team. Dylan Cease has been really good for them. Fernando Tatis has been okay. Manny Machado has been great. Ha-Seong Kim has been good. Cronenworth has kind of taken a step back, which is kind of weird for me. Xander Bogaerts just came back from the IL. I can't think, and they're winning games right now. I'm not saying like they're a bad team, but I can see how they take a step back. I don't think they're as good as what they were last year, but right now they're on a heater. And if they continue that, they can make some good distance in the wild card race. So that's my only concern. And I bring all that up to say I do think the Giants have a realistic chance of getting in the wild card. Getting past the wild card, I'm not sure. On a one-game win or go home type of a game, I don't think the Giants can overcome that. I think the Giants would be in the wild card and done. I don't think they move on past that. I think they need more. Juan Soto needs to be the focal point for the Giants. Whether we go far in the playoffs, I don't even care if we win the freaking World Series. Juan Soto needs to be the focal point for the Giants. They need to be doing everything they can to get Juan Soto, and they've already done the groundwork. Signing Bob Melvin, as I said, signing Blake Snell. Getting Mark Canha back as a Melvin guy, getting Matt Chapman back as a Melvin guy. The reason they're doing all these moves is setting up for, look at all these players who come back and want to play for Bob Melvin. I know that's what they're trying to do. I'm not dumb. So for me, it has to be Soto. Soto's got to be number one, and then you're going to have to get like a few pictures here and there because there's going to be some guys who are going to go. I don't know if Snell is going to come back because, like I said, Soto is going to have to be the number one guy. So Snell's going to have to kind of take a back seat. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think the Giants would be smart to try and re-sign Snell as well. But
yeah, and Chapman.
Yeah, I think Chapman has to opt out. I don't see him opting out, to be perfectly honest, but maybe he does. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe this is a question where would you sign Chapman to a long term? I would.
What are you talking about long term? What would be your?
I wouldn't say like a mega deal like you're seeing like 10 years or anything like that.
Yeah, if it's 10 years, no.
I would say like a solid 5-year deal. Wow. You know,
I would say 3 years. I would sign him to a 3-year deal because I don't think he has that much left, and 5 years I think is kind of steep.
It's just really hard to find third base defense like what he has. That's my only argument. Is it's really hard to. I can understand the pitch, the hitting part of it. The defense though is really hard because I remember when we didn't have any defense at that third base line, and now he's kind of shored that up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I will ever want to lose that again. So I'm thinking you're gonna have to retire in orange, man. You're not going nowhere. So
I'm with you. And he kind of reminds me a lot of Brandon Crawford, where we probably held on to him a little too long, but because Crawford was so skilled defensively, even though his bat was terrible. And I'm not saying Chapman's bat has been terrible, but I just feel like if we're going to sign him to a 5-year deal, it's really because of that. Exactly what you're saying. That corner is now sewn up.
Yeah.
I'm with you. All right, Cody. So I have a game.
Okay.
And I wanted to shout out this podcast, but I can't for the life of me. I can't figure it out. And I'm going to do something that's not good for podcasting, but I don't care. The Hot Corner Show. Okay. This is inspired by the Hot Corner Show. So shout out to them. They'll probably never see this video, but anyway, or hear this podcast. They're another podcast, but I see them on TikTok all the time, and they're always doing games. They're always doing lists. And I didn't want to do a game that they have done. So I was kind of trying to think of my own thing, but I'm not super original. So I really thought long and hard about this. And when I say I thought long and hard about this, it took me about a day. And I was just like, we'll just run with it. So, there's some upcoming free agents in Major League Baseball, and I wanted to put you in the GM shoes. Now, I was gonna say you can pick any team that you want, but I think we should just stick with the Giants. I think we've been Giant dominant. So, you and I are gonna go back and forth. We're gonna pick players and ask each other, okay, would you sign them? Would you sell the farm? Meaning you're going to move mountains to get this guy, or would you hope that we're talking about the Giants? So would you hope that the Dodgers sign him so you can watch him suck for the Dodgers for years? So that's kind of the mindset of it. And if you don't want him to go to the Dodgers because you're afraid, okay, he's still got high talent, you could say the Padres, you could say the Rockies or whatever. So I'm just using it as an example. But anyway, that's our game. So would you sign, sell the farm, or hope your rival gets him? All right. So Cody, I will ask you first since this is the game I thought of. Okay. So we're gonna go with the most notable free agent coming up. We'll start with him. Okay, the Giants fire Farhan Zaidi, Cody Johnson. We just hire you as the GM. Okay, what's your plan for Juan Soto? Do you want to sign him? Are you going to sell the farm, or are you going to hope that he goes to any NOS team?
I mean, first off, I want him on the team, but I think in this scenario, I would want to sell the farm to get Soto because the Giants relying on just signing him, just looking back, and we just talked about this in our past, really unlikely that we just outright sign him as a free agent. We lost out on Judge. We lost out on Ohtani. I would sell the farm to get Juan Soto because at least if he's on the team with Bob Melvin, let's just hypothetically say this was at the trading deadline, we did this. I have now the rest of the season to convince him to stay. Maybe now we up our chances to getting a wild card spot. And also he's back with Bob Melvin. He's back with Kenna. He's back with Snell. He's back with some familiar guys. He's back in California. And I feel like that would be the best scenario. So I'd sell the farm to get Juan Soto today. So that way I get him on the team We'll worry about the logistics later. I might lose him, but at least I have a shot. At least he's on the team, and now all I have to do is keep him. Now, granted, maybe that's not great just because Juan Soto's last 2 teams, he didn't stay on their team. He jumped him. But I would say just for the sheer fact of having an opportunity, I would get him on the team and then go from there.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is the reason Juan Soto has been able to jump is he hasn't signed a huge, long contract. And I think that's one thing that the Giants are actually going to be able to do is sign him to a long contract. And I think that's why the Giants are in play. And you want to make sure that he knows he's going to be the face. He's going to be the guy in San Francisco because we're going to commit to you for the rest of your career. So I 100% agree on that one, Cody.
Okay.
I would absolutely sell. I don't care who it is. Even if it were Patrick Bailey, we had to give up. Patrick Bailey is a great player, and I love him, and I hope he's never even in a conversation of being traded or being released. But if we're talking about Juan Soto or Patrick Bailey, and I know Patrick Bailey's value is not just at the plate, but also behind the plate for those pictures. For all intents and purposes, there's a lot of great teams who are not thriving or who don't thrive at the catcher position yet are still a really good team. So the catching position has been very important in San Francisco, obviously because of Buster Posey and now because of Patrick Bailey. But if it's Juan Soto or Patrick Bailey, I'm going to lean on Juan Soto.
All right. You ready for one?
All right. I'm ready.
All right. We're going it's going to go pitching because that's what we desperately need. And I hope I don't butcher this name, but I probably will. Michael Wacha.
Waka.
Would you sign? Would you sell the farm? Would you give him to a rival team? Which, by the way, he is. But would you give him to a different rival team?
No, I hope he stays in San Diego. I think I'm not a huge fan of Michael Wacha. I think he's done good. I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher, but his whole career has been very up and down. I think would he do well in San Francisco at Oracle Park? I think he would, but he's starting to get long in the tooth. I just wouldn't want to invest in Michael Wacha. Where there's Blake Snell that's out there who could potentially, re-sign or go somewhere else. So I'd rather put my money into Snell rather than Michael Wacha. But yeah, if he stays in San Diego, I'm not beat up about it. If he goes to the Dodgers, I'm not beat up about it. Rockies, Diamondbacks, I could care less, to be honest. I would let him go.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Cody. So I'll stick with pitching.
Okay.
You're the Giants GM. Okay. I don't know if he's going to be available, but I'm going to bring it up anyway.
Okay.
Walker Buehler.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
See, his last few outings haven't been great, and he's rehabbing. We'll say that. So he's shaking off a lot of rust. Excuse me. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's coming back from Tommy John. So that's a slow workup. If I were the Giants, though, I think I would sign him. And here's why. There is so much potential that he gets back to form. And when he was, before injury, he was a lights out pitcher. He was arguably, and this is a couple of years ago too. This is before, gosh, I'm forgetting who Clay's, oh my God. Who was, I'm thinking of the Dodgers famous Kershaw, excuse me. God dang.
Oh, Clayton Kershaw. Oh,
yeah. So a few years ago before Buehler got injured and Kershaw, before he was also older, they were lights out together. They're probably arguably the best 1-2 pitching combination in all of rotation.
Yeah.
I think Buehler being still younger, I think he's still in his 20s. There's a lot of potential that could come from a Tommy John recovery, get him back into form. And the Giants are notorious for taking the broken toys and fixing them up, and then they go off. Look at Kevin Gausman is a great example. Carlos Rendon. We've received a lot of great pitchers that needed a year or two to prove that they still got it, and then they go on and sign big deals. They don't stick around, unfortunately, but I feel like I would sign Walker Buehler to almost like a 2-year prove it deal to make sure you're healthy, because if he gets back into form, which the Giants are really good about doing for pitchers, we have an ace. We have another guy that can pair with Logan Webb on a starting day. And again, to include Harrison in that and Snell, assuming that he stays on the team, there's 4 great quality starting pitchers right there that helps the Giants in those days where you don't have your bats going, you have your pitching that's kind of holding it down. So I would sign Walker Buehler. I would go for that one.
Okay. I like it. I agree. I would sign Walker Buehler. I'm not going to sell the farm. If it has to be the farm or Walker Buehler, I'm going to keep the farm, just because of the recent injuries that he has had, and he's been out quite a lot lately. And so that makes me a little nervous, but he's a great pitcher, and he's pitched in big games. So he's kind of at least a veteran pitcher. So he would fit the mold for what the Giants are doing. But I don't think the Dodgers are going to let him go, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he's a Dodger for life. But in the scenario, that's what I would do. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to go with an outfielder, and I think you're familiar with this guy, and I'm pretty certain you're a fan of him. So I kind of know what you'll sway, but I'm curious how bad you want him. Tyler O'Neill, would you sign him, sell the farm, or gift him to a rival?
This is a tough one because I really do like Tyler O'Neill. I you know what I would say. Oh man, shoot. I don't know, because it would depend on what we do with Soto. So I'm gonna say sign him. Okay. But if we get Juan Soto, I don't think there's room for him, because you have Elliot Ramos, because you have Luis Matos coming up. These are outfielders who are young, who I think would pair better with Juan Soto than a Tyler O'Neill. You could sign Tyler O'Neill and be like, hey, let's be the DH, but then you're kind of losing his speed, because he's got very underrated speed, and he's got a really good glove. Yeah. And you could argue, well, why don't you put Matos in the DH spot? Well, these guys are too young to just throw them as a DH right now, I think, and they're too talented to not be out there, in my opinion. So I just feel like it would really depend on what we did and how we wanted to go about things. But I'm just going to end up saying sign him, because I do like Tyler O'Neill. I mean, he's having a great year. I don't think he's going to have that kind of year again this year. To be honest, I think it's behind him. But he's a guy who's pretty decent he's about a 250 hitter. He's a guy who can get to 20 home runs, and he can steal you some bases, and he's a really solid outfielder. So and he would fit what the Giants do, which is we want to focus on defense. And you're adding a little pop in the bat, but he's a guy who can get a lot of RBIs. So I like him. I would sign him.
Okay.
All right, Cody. I'm gonna go with. Oh boy. All right. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you because we haven't even mentioned him yet, and I know how much you love this guy. We're talking about first base. Okay. Paul Goldschmidt.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay.
Yeah.
I do love me some Goldie. He's won me some important fantasy baseball, and now he's actually doing it for me this year too. And slow start, not the season that we were hoping for, considering I think it was last season he had his NL MVP season. But I would say that I'm neither going to sell the farm nor sign Paul Goldschmidt. I would probably allow him to go sign with a rival or another team for the same reason why you're very similar to Tyler O'Neill. But I think this one's different because Goldie's older, and I think a lot of his MVP run is behind him. I think what makes it tough is the last 2 seasons now he has started the same way, which is he's really slow up to May. And then May comes, and then he starts picking it up a little bit, and And now, like, the Cardinals have turned a corner where they're starting to get hot, and now they're in wild card contention. But they were dead last for quite a period of time with the season, and so now, as they're turning it around, he's getting a little bit hotter. And I'm trying to keep it relative. I wouldn't say he's doing too much. I mean, he's not like hitting 300. He's now at maybe 255, and he was batting 220 all season. So in relative, it's not a huge jump, but he's getting hotter at the right time.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening is every season it's a slight regression and a slight regression. And I don't know if the Giants want to take a chance on that, because we saw very similar to like Brandon Bell and Brandon Crawford probably stayed too long, older players. And we have a lot of young players that I don't feel like I would give up for Goldie, even though he's a power bat. I don't know how well that would work in Oracle Park, as we were just talking about. Yeah. I would probably say, like, I love Goldie enough to where just, I don't think I would sign him or sell the farm. We're going to let him, end his career on somebody else's franchise, and we're going to watch from afar and be a fan, but that's about it.
I think I'm going to surprise you on this. I would actually sign him.
Okay.
And here's why. The Dodgers don't need a first baseman. He's not going to the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that I'll start off with this, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think he's staying in St. Louis. I think he's going to finish his career in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that. But let's say he doesn't. He's not going to go to the Dodgers. They don't need a first baseman. They already have a huge DH. They don't need him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to go to the Diamondbacks. They have Christian Walker, who's basically a younger version of Paul Goldschmidt. The only reason I could see him going there is if they're going to have him as DH,
mm-hmm.
and even then, and kind of as a homecoming, like, okay, you're going to retire as a Diamondback because you had, fantastic years as a Diamondback. I don't see him going to the Rockies because the Rockies are making Chris Bryant the first baseman. And
Mm-hmm.
again, the only reason they would sign him as a DH, I don't think Paul Goldschmidt wants to be a DH. I think he wants to play in the field.
Yeah.
So that leaves Padres and Giants. Realistically, I think the Padres would be in play.
Mm-hmm.
I do. But let's just say the Giants have the upper hand, and you have a chance to get Paul Goldschmidt. Would you rather have Paul Goldschmidt or Lamont Wade Jr.? In my opinion, I would rather have Paul Goldschmidt. I don't care if it's 1 year deal, it's a 2-year deal, maybe 3-year deal. I don't think he has that much longer, but at least you're adding a good first baseman,
mm-hmm.
a good at bat. Even when he struggles, he still puts the ball in play. He doesn't strike out a ton. He is a guy who can hit home runs, but we're not signing him for the home runs. We're signing him for the batting average, which is what we have said multiple years is what the Giants do. The Giants sign guys who hit for average, who are going to put the ball in play. Paul Goldschmidt is that guy. So, yes, he's older. Is he going to be the future? No.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a chance to get Paul Goldschmidt and put him on the Giants, I would do so.
Okay. I got another first baseman for you.
All right.
Pete Alonso.
Oh, I thought you were going to go Reese Hoskins because you know how much I like Hoskins.
I wanted to, but I felt like you would have given me the same answer that I gave about Goldie. So I really wanted to know if I can, because I'm going to assume that Juan Soto is the only player you're willing to sell the farm for. But I want to know if there's a second player that you would consider it for all the same reasons. So Pete Alonso.
I will tell you there is. Sorry, this is terrible podcasting. No, there's not a guy I would sell the farm for on this list. Not one guy.
Not even for Juan Soto?
No, Juan Soto is the only guy I would sell the farm. Everyone else, I could do without if I had to.
Okay.
I mean, I would really hope they sign certain guys, but I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, let's get rid of this guy and this guy. Pete Alonso. I would have to say I would sign him because it goes to the premise of what I was talking about with Paul Goldschmidt. However, Alonso strikes out more. He's not a guy who hits for average. He's a guy who hits for power. So I don't think he would actually ever come to the Giants because his home run numbers are going to dip.
Mm-hmm.
Just the reality. I don't know by how much. Let's say he hits 40 home runs this year. I don't even know if he's close to that, but I think he would end up with like 25 to 30 home runs. I think he could be in that range, which actually would help the Giants significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is kind of the numbers that I was thinking with Jorge Soler. So Alonso would be good. You could sign him to a long-term contract because he is still fairly young.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the greatest first baseman, but he's solid, and he's played it his whole career. And
Right.
again, like we said, to be perfectly honest, Lamont Wade Jr. is fine, but would I rather have Pete Alonso or Lamont Wade Jr.? I'd rather have Alonso. I'll take the strikeouts. I'm okay with the strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
If he's giving me the offensive production that I think he can do, even though I know some of those numbers are going to dip,
Mm-hmm.
when you hit the ball hard in Oracle Park, and it doesn't have as much air in it, usually it ends up being a hit. So I think he could develop where he could actually hit better for average than he does in New York because he knows, every swing is not going to be a home run here. So I'm going to have to adjust my swing. And I really do think he could do that. And he's that big of a competitor and that much of a baseball nerd where he would do that. So I do think the investment would actually be a really good investment for the Giants. However, it just really depends on how much he wants to be a New York Met for life and wants to be that New York Met legend, or do you want to contend for World Series?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Giants are that much far ahead of the Mets, but in terms of the way teams have been ran, and even though, Mets and Giants, I mean, the Mets have arguably a better team. I do think, however, the Giants have not the greatest guys assembled, yet they're still in the running. So you add a Juan Soto, you add a Pete Alonso, automatically that's a scary team, even for the Dodgers. And then if you're able to keep majority of your pitchers that you have, scary team.
Yeah. So I would entertain selling the farm for Pete Alonso.
Whoa.
The reason why is a lot of the points that you brought up is why I think it's worth a discussion. Now, am I outright doing it? No, but I think like one of the prospects that we have that's developed and, let's throw Lamont Wade Jr. in there and I don't know, Yastrzemski, just because we need to know I have a hard time thinking that we won't trade him next season just because, he's fine, but I think he's hit his ceiling. He's good in the outfield, but now he's probably an adequate trade piece for the offseason, maybe next season for something else. So, but anyways, besides that, the reason why I think Pete Alonso is because, again, we have that power factor. Yeah, sure, he's going to dip and maybe have 30 home runs, maybe 35 top, but 35 home runs with this team is
never seen
phenomenal.
A player with 30 home runs
in a long time. The fact that Matt Chapman is knocking on the doorstep of 20 is a huge deal for us. Like 30 to 35 would be great. And I'm not saying that I would want to sign him for defensive purposes, because I would argue third base is more of a priority for defense than first base. The guy just needs to make sure that he is available and is there. And even still, let's say you don't want to throw him out on the field, you can put him in DH, and I think he'd be fine in that spot too. But the fact that when there's now runners in scoring position, and yeah, he's going to strike out, but there's also a chance that he's going to belt this one out, or he's going to get it over the top of some defenses to where you're going to drive in some runs. I think that's something that we should thoroughly entertain. And he's relatively young to where, he could very easily now be the new face of the franchise in some respects, assuming we don't get Soto, because we can't sell the farm to both people. But assuming we don't get Soto and you have an alternate person that you can turn to that is for power, something that draws in fans, something where there's a big bat threat in the lineup, I think that's something to be considered. Is he the greatest player that I would say over any of the other players? No, but I think for the sake of the argument is he's a rare player that, he will hit for power. He's going to strike out a lot, but you kind of need that player who's willing to have the green light to swing on just about anything, any chance he goes up there. Not to mention, he's not going to play 162 games at Oracle Park. He's got to be on the road. So imagine if he's now in hitter-friendly ballparks. And
Colorado.
He's going to absolutely nail those home runs. They're going to be touching the Rockies, So I do think that, in Oracle Park, he may not play his best at home, but I think on the road, he's going to be just fine. Yeah. And he may play up to the Pete Alonso level of the Mets. And also, too, to your point, sure, the Mets may technically have a better roster on paper, but I would say like the Giants are the more sane organization than the Mets. I think he may want to go to a market that's not so hectic, especially like, oh, you went 1 for 5 with only 1 home run. What's up with that? Whereas the Giants are like, man, 1 home run, you drove in 2 runs. That's a hell of a game. I think he would like that. And plus you have Barry Bonds, the legend himself, in like Oracle Park itself, to where he has him at his disposal. Yeah. And I think there's just so much that could be beneficial for him on that, because you just mentioned he's a baseball nerd. Can you imagine the lineage that he would have access to being, with the Giants? So that's what I would say of why I would consider it. It's not off the table. Would I outright do it? No, I don't know. But I would say I would lean towards, I probably would be willing to take a chance, because right now the Giants really have nothing else going for them. So what's the harm in it? Okay. That's the only alternative that I would say.
I don't hate it. I just, for me personally, Pete Alonso, I would not sell the farm, just because there are a lot of not great things with him. There are a lot of faults with him, like you are going to see with a lot of players. But I wouldn't. Like Aaron Judge, I would have sold the farm, and I felt like we didn't really do as much as we probably could have. But Pete Alonso, I don't think is at that level. But I don't hate the points that you definitely made. All right, so this will be the last one I'll ask you. I will bring up an outfielder. Would you sign, sell the farm, or let another team sign Teoscar Hernandez for the Giants?
Here's the tough thing. I think it's like a Walker Buehler thing. I don't think he'll leave the Dodgers, but I like this player. I would probably sign him. I wouldn't sell the farm. I would sign him, though. I think that he brings, an element of stealing bases, which the Giants don't have. Did you know that we're dead last in bases stolen this season?
I did, yeah.
And I think that would elevate that. At least the threat of somebody that could steal bases would be great. Also, too, again, I'm not looking for power per se, because I would probably, as you see how desperate I am, I would sell the farm for Pete Alonso for some power right now. That's how desperately we need power bats in the lineup. But
I miss all the power we used to have.
But I think with having Hernandez, I think he would be a good spark plug that I think would make Giants baseball exciting. And no offense to some of the rosters now, like Ramos is probably, an exciting player when he's available and when he's there. And, Matos, when he comes back, he's an exciting player. I feel like having Hernandez would be a pretty good excitement. He's a nice little jolt of energy. He can lead off, which I think is a really good thing. And you don't get a lot of leadoff guys at stealing potential that are kind of like an all-around player. And he can play the outfield in a bunch of different directions and DH, and who knows what else the Giants can creatively get him into, because he's just a baseball player, which I think is great. He's not just a player that is constructed to one thing. He can do multiple things really, really well. And if the Giants could obtain someone like that, that'd be great, because now, you have an injury here, we can plug him in here. You have an injury here, oh, let's slide him over here, because he will hold it down. He's a very good player, and he's young enough too to where, you would get a lot of energy from him, not only at bats, on defense, and it'd be fun for the crowd. And plus, it'd be a great, middle finger to Dodgers fans out there if we got a really good player from their system and we got him on the Giants and he's winning games for us. So I would sign Hernandez.
I agree. I would sign Teoscar Hernandez, and it kind of goes a little bit against what I was talking about with O'Neal, but I think Hernandez is more in his prime now. He is a better hitter than Tyler O'Neill, like average. And he's a guy who drives in a lot of RBIs. Now he's benefited from the last few years where he's been in Toronto, where they had, Bichette who was hitting well, Guerrero who was hitting well, Semien who was there. I'm forgetting a lot of their players that they've had over the few years where he was playing with as well, but. He had that benefit and he was hitting, and now he's with the Dodger team where you got Otani, you got Betts, you got Will Smith, you have all these players, Freeman, who are guys that you have to be worried about as a pitcher, and then you have Teoscar Hernandez where he's just thriving in a spot where he can just hit RBI after RBI, and then of course the power doesn't hurt as well. So he's benefited from that, but if you paired him with Juan Soto, you could then dispose of either Ramos or Matos or have them interchange or put one of those four guys as a DH and you're solid. Then I'm not selling the farm for Pete Alonso because I already have two really good hitters on the team. Now I just got to focus defensively everywhere else, and maybe I can get a little bit better at the plate. But overall, I'm with you. I would sell Teoscar. I would sign Teoscar Hernandez, and pair him with someone. Now, if he's the only guy, then I don't think he's going to be as effective as what he normally does. But he would actually probably be the guy right now, which is kind of sad to say because Teoscar Hernandez, as talented as he is, he's not. Face of a franchise talent, but he would be a really good signing nonetheless.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have one more for me, or are you done?
I'll throw one more. I'll see if I can get you to bite on a sell the farm.
This is going to be our last segment because we've gone over.
Yeah. And my son's looking at me because I'm supposed to take them to the Chris Brown concert tonight. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Max Fried.
No, I'm letting him go.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Not even a thought of signing him? No, nothing?
I would think about signing him, but no, I would let him go. I'm not as high on Max Fried as a lot of people are. I think he's really benefiting from the Atlanta team. I think he's in a really good spot. If he came to the Giants, I think he would be okay. I'm not saying he wouldn't be great, but he really struggles with injuries. And he's young, which scares me. I don't like guys who are very young who get hurt right away with the major injuries that he has had. I'm not saying he can't turn it around, but it is off-putting for me. I don't think he's the strikeout guy that a lot of people think he is. And he's not a good, I'm going to let these guys put the ball in play and make them ground out. He's more of a, I need to strike you out or I'm going to give up a few runs. And
you don't like that? That's old Madison Bumgarner thought process.
Well, Madison Bumgarner used to be able to get ground balls and get guys to swing and miss. Max Fried to me isn't a guy who's capable of doing that or doing it as long. If we're going to sign him to like a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal and then a player opt out or whatever, then I would be more willing to sign him. But if we're talking about, long term, I'm not as high as Max Fried as a lot of people are. And so I would let him go. If he were a Dodger, I would be like, oh man, like I wish we didn't let him go there. Or he goes to the Padres where for some reason guys look like Dylan Cease, where everyone was like, oh, I don't know, Dylan Cease got to be careful. Then he goes to San Diego and is absolutely mowing people down. I would be a little upset, but like if he went to like Colorado or Arizona, I wouldn't be as upset.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time to go home, Drew.
Let me ask you one more.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
just have one more. Okay, you have to pick one out of the players on your list.
Okay.
Okay? You're the Giants GM. You have to pick one picture out of all these. Who would you pick?
All right.
Garrett Cole,
Mhm.
Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Corbin Burns, Shane Bieber. Who would you sign?
All right. So hot take. I'm immediately. Did you throw in Scherzer? You said. Okay. I'm immediately dropping Verlander and Scherzer. They're off the table.
Agreed.
I wouldn't.
Agreed.
I would also say I'm not thinking about Cole either. So which leaves me Bieber and
Burns.
See, and I think Bieber is younger, but he's not. Oh, so Burns is younger.
Burns is younger.
But Bieber, oh my God, when he's on though.
He's coming off of 2 big injuries.
No, I know. That's what is apprehensive. I would say ultimately I would go Burns because of the youth. He's younger slightly. My only concern though is I think Bieber, when he was healthy, he was, I mean, I know that Burns can be lights out, but also I would argue that Burns would have some outings where you were like, what are you doing? And he showed that when he was with Milwaukee, where he had good outings, but then for some reason, all of a sudden now he felt like we had to give up 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 today. And I felt like Bieber didn't have any of those games. Bieber, when he gave up 3, it was an anomaly. Oh my gosh, is Bieber hurt? No, he just, had a normal day. He only gave up 3 though, but he struck out, 9. And Burns, I think, he throws heat. He has some really good stuff, but I think that's the only reason why I would take Burns is because, he's going to have some strikeouts and he's got youth on his side more so, and he's not coming off of 2 major injuries. But if Bieber was healthy, like he didn't have any injuries, I would say Bieber.
Bieber's got really good stuff.
Yeah.
And even though he's lost a couple of ticks on his fastball, he's still got great movement.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we're saying, like Verlander has always had great movement on his fastball. You can argue some of the velocity is down, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but still, it's striking people out. And he's at the ripe young age of 42 years old. And I feel like, Bieber could be in that realm where, like, yeah, sure, we're throwing 97, but it's got some movement to where you're getting guys out, and he's, going to throw some other stuff that he's got in his arsenal that'll get more whiffs than anything. Just Burns just makes me nervous because of the random inconsistencies of how he is. And even with the Orioles now, like he's been solid, like a Cy Young type of year. But I would say that there are a lot of games that he had with Milwaukee and a few this season with the Orioles where you would wonder, like, man, I don't know if Burns is enough to get them over. But Bieber, when he was on, like, there was no doubt Bieber was
one
your
of the
guy.
best pitchers. Yeah.
So
I'm with you. I would throw Verlander, Scherzer out the door. They're long in the tooth. Yeah, they would be great for like a year or two, but I'm not going to count on them, and they're going to ask for a lot of money. Bieber, I think, with a lot of the injuries that he's had, he's going to ask for a lot more.
Yeah.
So I actually would be like, no, we're good. I think Garrett Cole and Corbin Burns would be the 2 that I would go after. Garrett Cole is buying low right now because Garrett Cole is coming off a big injury, and the knock on him in New York is he's not getting it done like we thought he was going to. So I think they're more willing to let him go than they used to. And then Corbin Burns, I just think is still really good. My only concern with Corbin Burns is he's getting older and he's not as good. He can't rely on his fastball like he used to. So now he's got to mix in a few moving stuff. So I'd kind of like to see that. So that would be why I would be in between those 2. But ultimately, I would go with Corbin Burns just because he is younger. He's still been doing really well, even in Baltimore. I say even in Baltimore like they're bad, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like he's doing it well, even though, he's not the star or whatever. If he went anywhere else, he would probably be one of the main guys. Garrett Cole, I think he's always had ties to San Francisco because of Brandon Crawford. But also, I think he would really enjoy playing with a rotation that is a lot better than it is in New York right now.
Yeah.
I think he would really like to play with Patrick Bailey, to be perfectly honest. So that was why I would choose those two.
I mean, I think with Cole, I would like if you gave me an option between Cole and Burns, I might say, let's say it's only for a season or two. I'd probably say Cole because the Giants are really good about having maybe an older pitcher in Oracle Park who, Oracle Park, again, it's not a hitter's friendly park. So I imagine his pitching would work really well because he doesn't have to strike a lot of guys out because I think our defense could hold it down even if he was, I wouldn't say having an off day, but maybe the stuff isn't there, but you have the defense to rely on. Whereas Burns, I feel like if his pitching isn't there, there's nothing saving us. It's all or nothing. And I think again, the youth factor is great, but he would be a number one in every other team with some apprehension, I would think. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. I know, Cody, you got to get going. Your son, and you're probably kind of freaking out a little bit. But anyway, we appreciate you guys joining us and listening to our podcast. Hopefully, we're going to be a little more consistent this year. Really moving forward, just to kind of give you guys a PA notice, it'll probably be majority Cody, kind of doing a lot of solo acts. Every now and then I will join him, but life as a coach is very difficult. And then I'm also doing school and also working and got to get the kids, and the kids are doing other stuff. So it's a lot harder for me to come on here, but I will try and be on here as much as I can. But we appreciate you guys joining us. The drill. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Threads. I was going to say Treads.
Threads.
All that jazz. All of our partners that we have, you can see down in the link in the show. So, Cody, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it was. This is nice to be able to do this again. Do my best to carry it on more regularly, so that way we can be everyone's favorite podcast as we've always been. So we'll keep that going. And
number one podcast in the world.
Yeah, in our hearts and in your life or whatever it is. So, anyways, but yeah, we do appreciate everyone listening and sticking through, and hopefully everyone joins us on Instagram. We're trying to be a little bit more active on that. And, Drew obviously will update us with stuff going on because, again, there's some excitement going on with behind the scenes stuff that he's working on. So it's not over. It's just we're evolving because we've been doing this for 7 years now. So we're just changing it up. So
we're growing as people,
as a podcast and as people.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
All right. See you, everybody.